I realize as we go through this, we're kind of sounding like the Amish. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Because while I think the Amish overdo the way in which they do things.
Yes, they overdo it by they completely cut themselves off from the outside world, and they have no sense of community with people outside of themselves, or people that make the effort to come into their own area.
Which is a problem, a very big problem.
It's the isolationism is the biggest problem.
And
Another big problem is that they treat animals like machines.
And yet at the same time, when the Amish have been discussing, like, do we get a cell phone? If we do, how does that work? The principle at play there for them is, how does it build up community? Ironic, given that they've cut themselves off from the outside world, but still within their community, that point is a great one. That principle is a great one.
Yeah.
So, when we're talking about needs, necessities, leisure.
Now, I would say that the one that's closer to the right approach is the Mennonite approach. Because the way that the Mennonites approach technology, because the Amish will pretty much reject all modern technology except in the case of dire necessity. Mennonites don't entirely reject modern technology, but anytime there is a new technology introduced, they kind of sit back and watch it to see how it affects everything before they actually adopt it themselves. Now, that is closer to what the right approach should be to modern technology. Now, I think maybe the more in line with rerum novarum approach to modern technology is that when there is a new technology, we should have people who are virtuous. We should have virtuous people going and actually learning about it and learning what it is. Basically, the people who know about the technology should also have informed consciences. Your first question shouldn't be, well, I want to sit back and see how this affects everybody else before I partake in the technology. Your first question should be, all right, let me take a good close look at this technology, and a bunch of us are going to do this together. How can it be used ethically and morally and correctly and to the betterment of society?
I love it. Absolutely love it.
Because that's how you should be approaching modern technology.
I see way too much of this, way too much of the either opposite vice opposed to that virtuous mean.
Either I completely reject or I 100% just immediately accept everything that is new.
Yep.
And shiny.
But I'll save some of my rant there for the AI podcast that we eventually do.
Well, and it's not just for technology either. It's for methods and things. And I remember when I was teaching, we had teacher conferences once a week. We're always on Thursdays. And in one of these teacher conferences, the principal told all the rest of us that she had just read this article in whatever teaching magazine about some process or method that was statistically working in several schools. Oh, so we should try it. And we should just do it. And the only reason that you really want to do it is because it's new. It's shiny and new.
And you can outsource some of your intellectual work to the studies.
Yeah.
The way in which you should be analyzing it, you can get away from it.
Yeah, so I think when we are approaching new technologies and new methods, we shouldn't flat out reject them and say that they're bad because they're new and they're modern.
Mm-hmm.
We also shouldn't just flat out accept them because they're new and they're modern.
Yep.
And I wouldn't recommend also doing what the Mennonites do, even though they've managed to do it for as long as they have. And kind of just sit back and observe everybody else use it before you decide to use it yourself. I think new technology should be used at arm's length until we can figure out what the most ethical and proper and virtuous way of using it is. Now, I think if the internet had been invented in the Middle Ages, it would be a very different internet than what we have today.
Yeah.
When the average person, and even the average intellectual, was significantly far more ethical and virtuous and moral than the average person today. Or the average person when the internet was invented.
Would potentially be more questions. Questions asked of it. Questions keeping it at arm's length, like you said. Questions that ultimately devolve to, in one form or another, how do I make this thing serve me rightly? As opposed to, how do I serve it rightly?
Yeah.
Which is the approach that too many people unfortunately take with modern technology.
Yes, too often the idleness of the use of modern technology. Technology is meant to be an aid to work. It is not meant to replace it.
Mm-hmm.
And the approach that we take to modern technology is one that lends itself to idleness. And idleness has the opposite effect of leisure. Because idleness is just giving yourself over and surrendering the purpose for which you were made, which was to till the earth and to keep it,
Mm-hmm.
and to work. Now remember, God just said to till the earth and keep it. He didn't say not to use a plow. Till the earth and keep it, and also know, love, and serve God.